do, everybody? It's your boy King Crowder back again with another edition of History You May Not Know, in history that is not in taught detail for show. Today's lesson, I will be focused on the great, the iconic, the controversial, and the impactfulness of John Brown, the famous abolitionist who knew that you do not spare the rod and violence was needed to reap this bad country of its harsher racism and slavery. John Brown was born in May 9th, 1800 in Torrington, Connecticut. He was born in a poor, more impoverished family. John had a lot of children that most people did not know a lot about. He had 20 in his lifetime. A lot of his children died because we must understand pride in America, firstly, increasing his health care. More than 10 of his children died before becoming an adult. So this man dealt with a lot of grief and trauma. John Brown, the great Mr. Brown, is known as being an abolitionist leader, was the one that was charged with treason and fighting in the bleeding of Kansas, and also murdering and executing those in the Confederate Army in the Harper's Ferry Rebellion. Most people don't know John's backstory, which I want to shed a light on. Mr. John struggled with money and income. He actually was very poor. The only place he was so poor with his family, the only place he could live, and the only people that would get assistance was in Black Farmers Town. Black freedom towns in certain parts of the United States accepted John Brown. As John began to live, be around, and understand with Black Americans, he began to sympathize with those and understood that most of their family legacy that was in the South was strictly enslaved. John, being a hardcore Christian belief system, he was a Calvinist, and John believed that God gave him the vision and the right to get rid of slavery in this country. John was so famous among Black Americans. He knew Harriet Tubman, had a relationship with her, even referred to her as General Tubman based on her ability to free captive slaves from the South in this time. He also had a very staunch relationship with the great Frederick Douglass. John was such a radical belief system in Black Americans having their rights. He was too strong for Tubman and Douglass at this time. Brown knew that he wanted to get the freedom done and that God had placed his belief system upon him. Most people do not realize that John Brown's legacy came about because when he came to Kansas, to his first battle, he killed white Americans who were enslaving Black Americans at this time. John Brown was a highly intelligent person that said, we must handle this issue with violence. These people are captivating individuals. These are American citizens. It is inhumane. It is unrighteous and it is ungodly. He began to recruit Black Americans at this time to fight against the whole movement of enslavement. John Brown had a strong belief system and he stroked fear in the heart of most Americans. Most people don't realize that it was a law in act, and John Brown killed 15 white Americans at this time, allegedly, and the law was changed the next day. He was a bad mother, you know what. John Brown led with expertise, heavy armily, and recruited heavily. He advised Harriet Tubman to recruit formerly Black enslavement to build his Black army. He wanted to make things impactful and he didn't want to wait in this country. Most people don't realize that John Brown used him and his children's lives to stand up for what the righteous act that was incorrect around this time. John Brown went to Harper's Ferry, Virginia, better known as Charleston, better known as West Virginia now, Charlestown. Mr. Brown fought for the reading rights and recruited people in the military acts. He wanted to uplift and go against by freeing over 10,000 slaves in the Virginia area. Mr. Brown was such a radical believer and thinker at this time that he battled hand to hand against Robert E. Lee's army. Robert E. Lee was the Southern States Confederate general. He went toe to toe with him and let him know he did not believe in his system, he did not support it, and slavery must be taken down. Sadly, Mr. Brown's army did not succeed in the war against Harper's Ferry. He was kidnapped, he was charged, and he was given a treason act. And yet, you know, at this time, treason was guilty by hanging. Even during his hanging time, Mr. Brown stood 10 toes down. And he said in his speech that was recorded throughout U.S. history, Until we deal with this act of racism and enslavement, we will not be better as a country. Those words give you goosebumps. We must understand that this issue must be handled internally, our philosophy, our thinking, and our ideology. He referred to all enslavement as misdemeanors, and their rights should be humane and God-given. We treat these people as less than. So he burdened and told America his burden. Until you handle this issue now, you will continue to have problems going forward. He said, kill me now, kill me swiftly. This man put him and his children's life in danger to brought down the system, of slavery in this country. Mr. Brown has been known as a controversial figure based off how he killed white Americans at this time. But when you think about it, his ideology, no matter if you support it or not, was one of the greatest impacts towards change. If Mr. Brown did not stand up for what was pro-rights, did not stand up for what was right in this country, even when it was not comfortable to do, Mr. Brown ensured that he supported Black Americans. He was beloved by the Black community at this time because he knew what they were doing was wrong. Mr. Brown, sadly, his legacy and his story has not been championed until current day. I believe that his story is so impactful about someone that was impoverished who made the greatest impact. He went all the way around this country, traveling through Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, speaking of how he was going to insurrect and take away over 600 Negroes from freedom. John Brown is a brother that put his life, his voice, and liberty on the ground. He not only talked the talk, but he walked the walk. Again, Mr. Brown was executed and hanged several days later, but his legacy and lineage lives on. You must understand that Mr. Brown's legacy is so impactful that people like Malcolm X referred to him and certain other U.S. histories at this time. He mentioned the point, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Mr. Brown's legacy was one for huge anti-slave movement and huge change in the impact and legacy of this country. He died near the Mason-Dixon line, and his legacy and his outcome, it still hasn't served as much. Woo! It's your boy King Crowder coming in with something heavy. The great John Brown and what he did that was radical at this time. I would advise everyone to look into this gentleman's history, man. We need a John Brown film or movie to come out in recent years. This brother's impact has exceeded color lines, nationalities, and ethnicity. I wanted to give the great John Brown his flowers based off him standing up right and putting his life on the line. There's one thing for you to do it for yourself, y'all. He even did it to his children. That was a brother you can support through any act and through any action. Hopefully you learned something today. Please comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. It's your boy King Crowder. Check it out.